Welcome back, everybody. You are watching the Artificial Intelligence live stream. What an exciting week. What an exciting, 48 hours we've had, actually. So first of all, we learned that Amazon is actually the internet, because when Amazon learned that, a situation near and dear to me, because that's what we're trying to solve with Beamable by creating a DPIN for compute for the game industry that isn't relying upon one particular provider. And I love Amazon, by the way. Great company, does things right. And stuff does break. We can't expect 100% perfection, but there is an opportunity to improve things. I'll talk about that later. But we're here to talk about artificial intelligence. We're here to talk about gaming. I'm going to have to say something about the imminent TGE of Beamable itself. But this show isn't really about me. It's about Chuck Stock here, who we brought in. Chuck Stock, let's start with you and your own background. Share with our audience what you've done before, and then we're going to talk about Remix. But let's just start. What brought you to this point in time and space?
It's a great question. Pretty philosophical as well. How we all got here, but I think a lot of it started a little over a decade ago. I was graduated from school, finance and accounting, was doing public accounting for a while. And for those of you that have never done public accounting in the States, January to April is known as busy season. And during that time, you work about 80 to 100 hours a week. It's absolutely grueling, mind-numbing work, and it's just really not that enjoyable. And I was in the middle of busy season, and I remember walking home at 11 o'clock at night and just really wishing I was doing something different with my career. And I'd always been super excited by coding and tech, and I really just felt like I admired Silicon Valley from afar. I was just how can I get into tech? And at that point, I used to walk past this coding boot camp school, and they had this sign outside that was apply to Galvanize and go to coding boot camp, learn to code for 6 months, and get a job where you can guarantee you making $70,000 a year right out of school, or right after the 6 months. And I thought it was fake. I was there's no way. There's no way I can go code for 6 months, then be getting in jobs. I just thought it was a scam for a while. And then my older brother ended up going to the boot camp, and he kind of just tested the waters, and turned out it was real. Turned out there was a desperate need for more developers. And so I ended up taking the plunge into coding, and I just fell in love with it from that moment. And then while at coding boot camp, I met some guys who were super into Bitcoin and really into Ethereum, because Ethereum had just come out. So they convinced me to put the rest of my savings into Bitcoin, and the exchange I put it on got hacked that very same night. And so
run Mt. Gox?
No, this was after Mt. Gox. This was Bitfinex.
Okay. Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so I think it was 2015, and I
had some Bitcoin on Mt. Gox.
Oh yeah, that one's brutal. But I think weren't they repaying people for now? Weren't they sending
mine off? I had to take a haircut. I wasn't willing to wait and see how things played out. So
yeah,
when they started taking a couple of weeks to wire me my money back, I was yeah, something's going on here. How about I take a 20% haircut and move it over to Bitstamp, their exchange you could use at the time, and so I took a little bit of a loss, but better than waiting whatever it is 14 years to get my money back.
Yeah, you can't keep rolling the dice with them, And I got rugged day one on crypto, which was a pretty nice trial by fire. Thankfully, it wasn't that much money at the time, but unfortunately, it was all the money I had at the time, so it was pretty devastating. But I kind of thought crypto was insane, and then I went to an Ethereum meetup about 6 months after that, and once I learned about programmable smart contracts, I just felt that totally clicked from my accounting background, my finance background, and I just I really felt like it was going to change the internet. And so I really went all in on Ethereum back then, but it was really hard to find a job in blockchain technology in 2016. And so I ended up finding I ended up working at an indie video game studio in Boulder, Colorado. I did that for a little bit. But then I went to go work at Shapeshift with Eric Voorhees. and built that product out. And Shapeshift was one of the exchanges, kind of like the original almost Dex exchange. So built that for a while. Built a product called CoinCap, which was the number 2 pricing service behind CoinMarketCap for a long time. And then, but while I was at Shapeshift, I just was really obsessed with the intersection of Web3 and gaming. And so that's when I launched my first company called Gamer, which was trying to help creators monetize their audiences better. I felt like this 2019, it felt like Twitch and all that stuff was getting bigger, but I still felt like it was crazy that these like B tier streamers still weren't making enough money to like do it full time. And so we were pretty early to the questing and those types of platforms. But we got a lot of traction in Web 2. And then after the NFT craze in 2021, Web 2 kind of turned against crypto and like it's still kind of working it back. And so that was like this weird moment in time where we had all these users and we didn't know what to do with them because we couldn't really build the project, because every time we tried to turn on crypto, all of our creators basically be like, I can't talk about this platform. Like my community will eat me alive if I say there's like an NFT platform. So we ended up sunsetting that like a little over a year ago, almost 2 years ago. And on the back of that, that's when we started my newest company called Far World. And I'm happy that we can dive into that. But basically Far World started as like an on-chain Pokemon game, but that ended up leading us down this rabbit hole of like AI and gaming, which led us to launching Remix, which is really trying to be the TikTok for gaming, or this really infinite hyper casual social feed where all the games are built by the users on the platform.
Cool. I mean, funny story. A couple of years ago, we just put out a piece of example code at Beamable called Genomon. And cool. Genomon used generative AI to create, I don't know, I guess you could say Pokemon inspired. We definitely don't want to say they were. Random collectible creatures, and you could move around a 2D map. We were just showing people how you could do 2 things super easily with the Beamable platform. One is sit down in front of Unity, have a multiplayer game, have an on-chain game, because we minted these creatures and put them right on chain. We did it with both Polygon and Solana, so we had example code versions for both. And also that you could invoke generative AI APIs in the gameplay cycle of the game. So not just in the production of the game, but using it in like the gameplay experience. So you never know what things are going to look like. Yes, just cool little thing that Ali, our CTO, whipped together and put online a couple of years ago now. So it's still out there. Search on Genomon and you'll find it. All right, so fast forward to today, and so you went from doing really, really hard, long work for 4 months of the year to you decided, hey, enough, let's do it 12 months of the year, and I'll do a crypto startup. That's you described like accounting. I mean, I'm sure I don't want to take away from like how crazy that period of time is, but I can't think of anything crazier than working on a crypto startup where the environment is constantly changing. There's always something to learn. You definitely have to build. Anyway, I'm going to invite you to comment on Remix and what you're doing today. But before we jump into that, I also just want to remind our audience who's tuning in here. This is awesome. We got a couple hundred people watching live already. Thank you, all of you, for coming here and being part of the live conversation. There's a reason why we do this live instead of just recording a YouTube video. Now, if we did a YouTube video, we could do really cool like motion graphics and all kinds of stuff. But we would miss out on this piece, which is you, the community, participating and asking questions. And I already see some questions coming in. So thanks, Suman. We're going to get to your question. We'll definitely address it, but I want to encourage all of you to come in here and ask questions. And for those who don't know me, who are tuning in for the first time, my name's Jon Radoff. I am one of the founders and CEO of Beamable. We are a game infrastructure company. And if you want game infrastructure that doesn't go down because the biggest hyperscaler in the world decides to go down. I don't want to take anything away from Amazon. We work with Amazon. Amazon's a supplier to us too. But if you want access to something that's lower cost, that is built for game development, that has an ecosystem emerging around it, that has multiple service providers, so you can always just reprovision elsewhere. That's what we're doing at Beamable. And we're doing a token launch. So stay tuned. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. But if you want a preview on my X, My X is J Radoff. Just go there. The very top post on my feed right now is a little link into some of what we've got planned with the token presale. You're going to hear so much more in the coming next couple of days. We're going to announce our partners and all that. All right, enough about me for now. Although I'm gonna talk about myself a little bit for the next hour. Chuck Stock, tell us about Remix.
Yeah, so when we shut down my last company, a lot of why we built the previous company too was we really wanted to be into gaming, and similar to trying to get into coding was we didn't know really how to get into gaming. It kind of felt like my brother and I, who's my co-founder, like we weren't allowed to make games because we didn't work at Blizzard or work at Nintendo. It felt like we didn't have the pedigree to make our own game. And so we tried to be gaming adjacent and work with creators and do all that stuff. And then when that didn't work out, it kind of was this moment where like, man, well, we spent 3 years trying to do something, make something work because we felt like we weren't allowed to make games, but like, you know, let's just make our own game now. Now that we got nothing to lose, there's no company, like let's just try and make something. And so Farcaster had launched this new technology called Frames, which allowed you just to build games inside a social media feed. And it just felt like a really cool technology and a way to get distribution. And so we launched a product called Far World, which was like an on-chain creature collection game where you would train and level them up. And it all happened within a social media feed. That ended up getting a ton of traction and did really well. We sold out like 4 or 5 of our first packs, and then introduced battling as a lot of like auto battling and creature collection. And we're using AI to generate all the packs and all that stuff, which was really, really fun. And we just kind of had this moment that we just felt like that was like the most fun we had in our professional career. And it was like the most success we had with like any of our startups, just by like doing something that we thought was fun. And as we were building this Far World, one of the other big ideas we had was an idea called the Farcade, which we ended up rebranding to Remix, which was, would it be like to create an arcade, kind of like a mini clip around AI generated games? And originally we thought it was just going to be our AI generated games. We thought we were just going to have our own way for our team just to build games really fast, because we didn't think LLMs would get there as fast as they have at helping people write code. We thought like they would need a lot more hand holding from engineers. So we ended up building Remix almost about a year ago. We were working on our first MVP of it. And when we were doing it, we had about 4 or 5 games, and we were building out this AI game studio to help us build games better. And I remember just one of the days I like wrote a prompt because I think it was ChatGPT 4 or Claude, one of the versions had just come out. And I remember trying to be like, hey, can you build me Tetris? And it one-shot Tetris, like an amazing looking version of Tetris that just worked. And it just kind of was this moment that I was like, shit, LLMs are here, AI is here. Like, this really feels like this is going to be the future for hyper casual mobile gaming, is like anybody taking their idea and bringing it to life with AI. And so we almost inverted Remix a little bit, which is like, why would we just have it be our games? Why don't we let it be everybody's games? And why can't we just be the distribution discovery hub for this like next genre of gaming?
So one of the things that I think is really compelling about your kind of startup is that as AI, you kind of almost touched on this by saying you didn't think LLMs would be there in time for what you were trying to do. But as LLMs continue to improve and do more, like you automatically get better as a business too. Like all these other people are innovating on LLMs, and it's not like you're in competition with LLMs. They just sort of transform your business at the rate that LLMs just keep improving. Do you think about that and like what the future looks like as you look out over the next 12 months, 24 months? Like,
yeah, that was like a huge thing when we were looking at it. When we saw, I think that moment where you see like an LLM write software, you're like, what am I going to do? Like, where's my job going to go? Like, I've been learning to code for 10 years, and now this thing just did better than me. And so we wanted to think of when we thought about Remix, we really wanted to make sure the product took advantage of LLMs getting better and wasn't dependent. And it didn't feel like it was something that LLMs or AI was going to gobble up. And so something that's really cool about Remix, like you said, John, is the games. We launched our AI game studio about 6 months ago, and you can actually just like see the games and the quality just like getting better and better over the 6 months. And a lot of that's because people are getting better with the technology, but like LLMs just keep getting better. And it like the floor for the games, just like, it's crazy how much faster the floor for these games is improving. It's almost hard to make bad games with some of these modern LLMs. Like, yeah, they can be bad, but like it's just getting to the point where you're just getting such great stuff just for free out of the box. And so we do think about that a lot. And something I do love about Remix and where we're positioned, which is a lot of times it's just switching, use ChatGPT 5 or use Claude 4 or 5 Sonnet now. And like, we just have to change one line of code and now users have much better games.
Cool. Have you thought about social and multiplayer aspects to your games and how does that play out?
Yeah. So the interesting part with the LLMs that we learned quickly, which was the games actually become like one of the easier parts of the process for people who have never written code. But if you want a game, a lot of times you want some standard stuff, which is like, I want authentication and a social graph and achievements. And so we try to streamline all of that for the games where you can just vibe code the game. It really is just an index HTML file with just an SDK, our SDK wrapping it. But then we add like authentication, achievements, points, like all that stuff for the players. And one of the things we did add is multiplayer and saving state, so having persistence with your games. And so we're really focusing on async turn-based games as opposed to live multiplayer. We found live multiplayer just has an incredible amount of complexity. You can actually see this like Far League game that someone made that's playing against an AI, this like little car racing game that someone made. We actually prototyped that out with like live, like a live multiplayer, so people could play real time. And you just always run into like player liquidity issues. And if we have this platform, oh, sorry, I was going to probably be loud.
No, that's my fault. Sorry.
You're good. But we also just have this vision of like the platform where there's just tons of games and tons of things to do. And we don't really want to like cause an issue with like our own player base and like fragmenting them. And if we're encouraging everyone to make live player games, it just makes it harder and harder for new creators to get people to play their games. And so we're really excited by the async turn-based stuff. And so anyone can come to our platform and actually make turn-based games. So we have like a lot of one-on-one games, but I'm really excited for people to explore things more like Civilization and games that potentially have hundreds, if not thousands of gamers all taking turns in these same games. And so that's where we're thinking about multiplayer. Is the live stuff is really competitive. I think player liquidity is a really big issue. And so we really feel like async turn-based fits really well into like our model and what is appealing for our gamers.
Well, when you want to add a lot more multiplayer functions, I know a company that can.
No, I know.
Even if you stick with async, which is, by the way, our heritage was back at Disruptor Beam when I ran a studio. It was all async games, Game of Thrones and Star Trek and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, I remember we talked for a quick second at in San Francisco, and I remember because as the first I was really learning about it, and I was really impressed with honestly how far along you guys are. It felt like you guys are making it sound like you're just getting started, but you guys have some very impressive technology. So yes, I think Beamable is a very good place for what we're trying to offer for our developers, right? It's like the same thing for you. It's like infrastructure is very complicated, and I don't see that getting any less complicated anytime soon. So it's really good to have good partners.
Yeah, we'd love to help. Let's have that conversation, figure out how we can help. And we have the web SDK now too, which might make it a little bit easier.
That's perfect.
So we started with Unity, then we added Unreal Engine, and really it's only a few weeks old. We added the HTML5 JavaScript SDK for Beamable. So hopefully we've got all our bases covered. So we got some questions coming in. So Suman's asking, how does Remix plan to keep players engaged long-term instead of treating games like short-form content? Suman, thank you for your question. We really appreciate that. I think it kind of relates to what you were just saying about like you were focused on async games, and it sounds like if I kind of read from that or understood what you said, it's almost like people could be involved in a bunch of async games and like pop between them so that you're not really married to just one core loop. Like you've got a universe of things that you can get hooked on. Did I kind of get that right? And if there's pieces I'm missing too, please.
Oh, John, you nailed it, which is, that's why I love the async turn-based games. It's kind of like your friend notifies you to come back to Remix as opposed to like our platform having to get you to come back and play. And I think a real testament to that is my mom has played Remix every single day since we've launched it. She has like a 250-day streak or something because she plays our like the Words games. She plays Words with Friends, basically like our version of it with my sisters, my brother, and then she plays like all the word puzzle games. And I think just like that social aspect keeps you coming back, and she likes just finding the new games that are enjoyable to her, because every time she comes back to the app, there's always new games there. Like we basically are launching 4 or 5 games a day at this point in time. So, you know, our goal was to get to 1 game a day by the end of the year, and we're kind of like 5x that at this point in time. And so, and we only think that's going to go more and more. We just kind of feel like that's going to go parabolic, honestly. But I think for us, it's a really good question, because no one's really done this before. We don't really know what a platform like this can really look like over the long term. So we're really trying to find the right balance of keeping the platform pretty vanilla, so that it almost feels like a TikTok or a YouTube, where it's not so much about the platform giving you a bunch of rewards, but it's much more about just there's a ton of content there that you find very interesting. And then there's also like, but we do want to have like streaks and achievements and things that like make it fun for you to build this gamer profile on Remix. We're trying to find the marriage of those two ideas, which is we don't want to overshadow the games, but we definitely want you to feel like you're getting something on the platform.
So talk to me about that process of launching a game. When I think of a TikTok like format, I think of like a zillion users spamming content, and you just let the algorithm figure it out. Like, it sounds like you're more curated than that. Can you talk to me about like the thought process that went into that, and how you're approaching it today, and maybe even how you think that evolves?
Yeah, I think the main problem I see with a lot of this happens a lot with the crypto products, and John, you've probably seen this a lot with like gaming products, is I think they go like wide too quickly. They want to build this like YouTube competitor, and they're like, anyone can post games on this platform. And all of a sudden, as a new user, I go to that platform and I just have a terrible user experience. I'm like, half the games don't work, some are no fun. And that was one of our first versions of the product. Was it was built off the Farcaster like centralized social graph, and basically all you had to do was post your game and it would automatically get pulled into the Farcade. And all of a sudden, like you couldn't even find a good game, and I was like, it just felt like such a bad user experience. And so we basically took this other approach where we manually review every single game. Every game has to work. It has to work on all the platforms. It has to like, we try not to make judgment on quality, but if it's really bad, we won't let it through. Like sometimes there's just like the gameplay is like way too simple, or like won't do so, like it's just not going to be compelling for users. So we definitely went very narrow at the start, because we just felt like it was so important for our users to have fun. And until we felt like we were having, you know, tens if not hundreds of games being launched every day, where now you can actually use like community filtration like you would any social network. Until we got to that point, we felt like curation was going to be a huge thing that we needed to do. And we feel like that's been the right answer so far, because we feel like people have a much better first user experience. They're very excited to like play those first games because they've all been curated. They're much more likely to share it with their friends because they had fun. And so we really wanted to start narrow, then go wide, as opposed to, I think protocols and crypto really want to go wide first and then narrow, but it's hardly ever the case, especially with like Web2 and like a lot of games. Like you just need to be very polished now, because there's so much fighting for your attention.
Yeah. So one of the real takeaways from what you just said is the quality bar and how that's changed over time. And I think one of the false assumptions, actually, to critique Web3 games, is like there was this built-in assumption of, oh, it's a new platform, therefore we can have a pretty low quality level and people will play it. So
yeah.
And I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. I'll share my own thoughts first, which is just, first of all, that was just the wrong way to think of it. Like Web3 isn't a new platform per se. It's a new business model for a game. The places it's deployed are places people are already playing games. So I can I can play a Web3 game on the web. I can also, there's some on the traditional platforms, not quite Steam anymore, but like Epic Games, or there's people doing the Steam version that doesn't have the crypto, and then you discover that there's a crypto and you download the other version that has crypto. So like that's the current state of shitty distribution, FYI. But the point is, if you're downloading a game off Steam or Epic Game Store, you're used to really good games. Like if you play a bad one, you don't care what the business model is. You're just not going to play it. Same for the web. Like there's actually good games on the web. Like I shipped a game. My first web game was Game of Thrones that we shipped in 2013. So like games already had to be reasonably good then.
Yeah.
Now they have to be really fucking good. Like, it's hard. So no one wants to play the rough edges of your alpha other than maybe your friends and family will. But like you get beyond that, it gets tough.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think there was some naivety towards the situation, and I largely felt like there was this discovery process where we were trying to determine whether if you just took World of Warcraft and put it on chain, would that on chain thing be compelling enough to make people move over? Or if you just took XYZ game and put it on chain, would people prefer the on chain version because the rewards are programmatic, it's all verifiable? Like there was kind of this discovery as an industry whether that was real, and it kind of feels like it's not. Like it kind of feels like that wasn't really enough to get gamers to want to switch over. That said, I think there still needs to be a lot more polish because like the reality was we weren't doing World of Warcraft on chain. We were doing like Pong on chain. We were doing like, early 2000s games on chain. The quality of games wasn't nearly up to par with where these AAA games are and the things that really do exist in what gamers are playing. And so I think there's a process to figure that out. And I think trying to figure out where crypto fits into Web3 gaming, I think there tends to be kind of an all or nothing thing. And we kind of sit a little bit more in the middle where it's like, I think you can kind of use things where it feels like it makes sense and everything doesn't need to be on chain. I think there's a lot of on chain for on chain's sake. And we're trying to always find the ways that like to use it more effectively and find things that just make it fun for the users and not just fun because it's fun to talk about.
Jon, do you think that that a lot of the people we've spoken to over the last year, especially when we start delving into the chain and into, perhaps crypto, that the realization has been that the game should come first and that any discussion about crypto should be either superfluous or separate from like the whole front end of like Web3 scene, that it was like, yeah, it's a crypto game. And then the game was described after the crypto was the emphasis. But now it seems that everyone that we've spoken to, or most of the people, it's like, they are proponents of crypto and Web3, but that's not the barrier to entry to actually enjoy yourself. I think that's what I've been hearing consistently now.
I think there's a bimodal distribution of success. We haven't really had, like, there is no like really big success in Web3 gaming at this point, but like the ones where you can see signs of life, there's a bimodal distribution of there's games that are almost like, say, pretending not to have a Web3 element. And they're just, we're going to build a great game. People, when they get deep into the elder game, they're going to discover the trading economy. Their friend is going to tell them, hey, did you know you can buy a better item over here? Like, that's what we see sort of the AAA-ish games doing. So like Wild Card Alliance, for example. Wild Card Alliance is building a very high-end game, MOBA shooter kind of dynamic, a lot of capital into it. And they don't talk about crypto in their marketing at all. In fact, I'm not 100% sure how they're using crypto. Like I'm aware of a few things because they're building on our platform, but like, I'm not sure how it's really going to play out for the player. I think they're just like, they've just realized for them, like, we just got to get people playing the game. Like, and we don't need an artificial barrier, whether that barrier is do something with a wallet to play, or the barrier is like Web2 gamers shitting all over them. So that is one sort of formula for success. I think the other is like do the complete opposite, like totally lean into being a degen game, right? Like you see that on like abstract chain games and stuff like that, where it's like, yep, we're building Ponzi games. like just go for it. Like that actually, none of those games are huge, but like they've built something legit that people are having fun with, and they're actually making some money, just not at like super scale. Like, but the formula is working. Like, there's small teams that are like in business, like running a game company with that, and I admire that. So that's sort of the bimodal distribution. What's not working? That middle area where it's like, we're a Web3 game. You sign up. It's wallet based. Like, it's not quite AAA. It's not even really AA. It's like just okay. Like, so that's my pattern recognition, Oscar. What do you think, Chuck?
I think you're spot on. Like, I think that's what we were trying to discover, right? Like, it's like, I think we all thought like the middle was going to be like the future of gaming, and it really is not. Like, I think Pirate Nation is a really good example of like just making a game and put everything on chain. And there's a ton of complexity and overhead that comes with like trying to do those things. And I think that's not really what I think crypto's great at. I think crypto's really great at doing like on-chain verifiability, and like, you can, whether you want to go like the casino fun games where you have things like football.fun, where it's like collectibles and prediction markets. I think that's like an amazing use case for crypto, or just the casino games, like those types of fun games, like Frankie Go and those types of things. Yeah. Or you can go kind of where we're going, which is, we really don't want to be like a Web3 forward company. Again, we have a lot of people that have never used Web3 before on our platform playing games every day. But one of the things that we learned early on from our previous company was trying to build a global rewards program and do programmatic payouts and things like that is sometimes impossible. I remember we had a creator on our last platform that was in Russia, and we're like, we have no idea how to pay you. Like, you need to create a crypto wallet and we'll send you some Bitcoin, because there's no other way for you to make money. And that's why we're really excited by the crypto components on our platform. It's just an amazing payment rails where we can build in a lot of rewards and attribution systems into the games and the creators, especially when we plan on having thousands, if not tens of thousands, if not millions of creators one day. And we really want all that stuff to be programmatic and on chain. And then when you can do programmatic stuff that feeds back into your own token and into other assets, that stuff is all so exciting, and what I think crypto excels at. So John, I think you're exactly right, which is like, I think it's really important for people building games now is the two things I think are really important is like, pick your audience and like know what you want to do. Then pick a side. Like, you're either a crypto company or you're obfuscating it and you're using crypto for what you need to use it for. And then I think the last thing is, don't have your company token also be like the main utility token of your game. I think we've seen that a lot where people try to like they're like, oh, we're selling a token that's a quasi equity vehicle, but then they have to try to marry that to like what really needs to be like a stable coin in their game economy, and it just like doesn't work.
Let's face it, most token launches are really meme coins, even if they don't not a representation of any amount of either business or protocol value. They're meme coins.
I think most chains, it feels like most chains are becoming just meme coins at this point too.
So Chuck, are Web3 games inevitable?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And again, it's like, what do you ever want to call, whatever you want to say is a Web3 game. I think it's like the good argument. It's like how much Web3 needs to be there. But I still have like a pretty big belief that like GTA 6 is going to have a crypto component in it, because they just seem like, Then imagine if GTA had a token. Like, I think that thing would be like a top 5 asset.
How many casinos do you have to own in GTA before you finally enable certain?
I just think it just purely is a better way to transact on the internet to me. And like, I think it's really hard to refute that. Especially in like when we just become more increasingly global in that. But so yes, I think it's 100% inevitable. And I think we're going to actually see a lot of things that failed kind of come back to life with either play to earn and some of these things. I do think they can make a comeback, but I think it's going to take a little bit more discovery still, but it's definitely going to happen.
I think the biggest roadblock that Web3 gaming created was taking the name Web3 gaming. And the sooner that Web3 gets kind of removed and it's just gaming, the better off everyone's going to be in the space.
So when I mentioned Ponzi games on Abstract, Drew shouted out, "Hey, Gigaverse!" And I talked to the founder of Gigaverse on this live stream. You can find the live stream somewhere. Maybe you could find it, Oscar. Like, I really admire quite a bit what he's done, and like I don't mean that in a negative way. It's only negative if you're trying to keep it secret that you're
Yes.
like if you're really clear, like this is a loot box economy and like come have fun with it. Like why not? Like that's an okay. And in some ways, Gigaverse is a game wrapper on top of like the chain itself, right? Like so. It's the question for you though, beyond opining on Gigaverse and Ponzi games, if you care to, is more the
And we're live.
games that we could potentially have on Remix. Like, is that part of the Web3 strategy? Like, will you do you see like Web3 loot box mechanics and things that play with tokens? That's interesting. If I almost think of you as the platform where I can make my own Gigaverse type experience.
Yeah, that's 100% where we're going. And so we largely think we're not trying to so much time AI, but we want our platform to evolve alongside AI. We're like, we know at some point in the future, you're going to be able to vibe code a world-class mobile game. There's no world or reality in my mind where like at some point with how fast this technology is going that I'm not going to be able to sit here and build something that's a truly incredible mobile game and would compare to AAA games today. And so with that future coming, that's where we believe we're going. So in the meantime, we're nowhere near there. And a lot of the games are really simple, and a lot of them are really only playable because it's novel. Like it's really fun to play this game because you know someone created it with AI. It doesn't really compete with what exists today, but there's like something new to this experience that people really like, which is it just has never been possible. And a lot of people are playing their friends' games or they're playing their, like my sister's game is one of the top games on Remix. So it's like, that's really fun for me. That was a really cool thing. And so, but the future versions of it and where creator monetization comes in is enabling them to have streamlined ways to earn rewards. And one of those main things is just storefronts and putting things on chain. And so enabling them to create on-chain assets and on-chain monetization feedback. And so, yes, you could create a Frankie Go or a Gigaverse or those types of things. And you could do it without knowing how to write smart contracts, knowing how to do any deploy code, or even necessarily know that your game is an on-chain game. We just use that because you're trying to move money within the game. And one of the things we're rolling out pretty soon is on-chain monetization, which will be like a way for creators to be basically boost their game's discovery, for a way for users to earn rewards in that game by essentially buying and boosting games. And so once that's live, then we'll be adding some more on-chain stuff with some more customization. But that's 100% where we're going.
Do you think that the tokenization of the game economies is that an easier path for developers versus you could imagine a parallel world in which you just said, hey, we're going to have like Remix Gold.
Yeah.
We all share that currency, like typical MMO model or MMO portal model. And that goes back to, I'm blanking on old platforms from like 20 years ago that basically built web-based gaming portals that had shared currency models. But you could have done that and just let people use that shared currency and play around with it in the context of your games. Talk to me about like pros and cons, and I'm interested in kind of two dimensions of that though. Like, is there more that they can do in practice versus just having that shared centralized currency? And is also just, are those things easier to build, which I think is important when we talk about like the on-ramp for users that actually gets them to have production level of experience.
So our platform, so let me clarify that. We will have a platform credit that is the base currency for everything on the platform. It'll be a stable coin that is used for all base transactions. That said, there's nothing that's stopping a game from when on-chain stuff is live that they couldn't say, oh, spend 100 Remix credits to get 10,000 gold in my game on Remix. So I would say that's very difficult to do. And I think that's like beyond the scope of a lot of the games today. A lot of the games are, what we'd call like stateless. They're single play. You start with 0, get to your high score, and then the game resets. And so a lot of those games don't really require storefronts or all these dynamic mechanics. And so one thing that we've added, which is this concept called boosting, which is basically like think of it like a Discord boost, where it's kind of like this like base level of payment that you can reward creators for their game. And then it gives a very simple API for creators to say, oh, you've boosted my game twice, John. So that means you've unlocked this skin. And then there's also community boosts, where if you've boosted a game 10 times, it unlocks the leaderboards. If you've boosted it 20 times, everyone who's boosted it gets a founder's badge. If you boosted it 50 times, it gets to the front page of Remix. And so there's all these mechanics that we want to build in as just these base level monetization features. And then we want the games that feel like they're big enough to be able to build their own shops and complexity. But it really is, we go from a Minesweeper clone to like these really deep Candy Crush clones. Like, so we need to like have a system that spans the gambit.
So let's take this back to artificial intelligence, though, because now I have to kind of like think about that, and I want to re-expand it. But we'll start with the economic parts. I feel like, I mean, if I want to just like brutally extract, first thing I'm going to my vibe coding interface, I'm like, make me a maximum extraction currency extractor and just like run with it, like, and just iterate on maximum extraction. Like, extraction is your objective function that you will now like, aren't you going to have a lot of that on the platform? I'm not even saying that's wrong, but
yeah, it's interesting because it could only be extractive as if consumers want to spend, and it's one of those things where gaming is really hard and something we've been very tough. It's been very tough to draw boundaries. There's always like, this game is legit. It's not a casino game, but like, it's getting kind of close. Like, it's kind of like it's kind of like porn. It's like, I don't know, it's hard to describe it, but I know it when I see it. It's kind of like that with like Ponzi games. It's like, and like when you start going like too far in one direction, and so it's yeah, I'm hoping that we don't have like a plethora of casino games that just like try to extract currency from our users. But I largely think that some of the stuff is just like a function of scale. Like, I think those things will either find popularity or they won't. And then there'll actually be like macro trends on the platform. Like, we just did a game jam with Pudgy Penguins. So like all the really popular games are all like Pudgy IP. And it's like, now that's kind of like ebbing and flowing. You have a bunch of people creating new Pudgy content, just because that's like what's interesting to the gamers on the platform. And so I'm sure we'll have like waves of like max extractive games, and everyone like wants to do that. But then I'm sure, like everything else, people will be like, we're not playing those games anymore, and they won't trend, and they won't get rated highly, and then there'll be a new trend of games.
I'm pretty sure this is the first of my live streams, especially on AI, where we talked about gambling, crypto, and porn.
Yep. All three.
Come on, John.
First, this is the first.
Come on, John. What kind of live stream is this? You gotta be knocking out three of those pretty early.
I see our viewing going up ever since we brought up.
Numbers are skyrocketing
right now. People are piling in. They want to know what we're talking about. So whoever just came in is going to stick around. All right, let's keep talking about AI though. So like, the focus initially has been around LLMs, at least as we're talking about, but there's so many other domains within LLMs, 2D, 3D generation, music, sound, like everything you could imagine. Like, where's the low-hanging fruit next in any of these generative technologies to pull them into the game creation experience for your creators?
Yeah, I mean, the low-hanging fruit, I think, is still building better game design docs. And this is something that we're working on right now, which is simply giving people a better first prompt. A lot of times people will go and they'll say, because especially if you haven't written software before, it's really hard to know the vocabulary of software, which is like someone who knows the language of game design. They can say, oh, I want, this player with these entities and these systems, and I can like give the AI a very good design document of maybe even the technologies I want to use, which is like, I want to use Phaser.js, which is like an HTML game engine. But if you've never done that before, you're probably just going to say, I want a game with a player who moves left and right and aliens shoot at him. And like, if you give that prompt to an AI 100 times, you're gonna get 100 staggering different outcomes. And so what we want to, I think the lowest hanging fruit is just helping users get to a very good first prompt, which is something that we're working on with our studio, which is actually taking you through more of like an exercise for building a game design document, which is like, okay, who's your player? What's the enemies? What are the objectives? And then the cool part is that design doc gets saved with our studio, and it is always referenced. So anytime you try to make updates or do stuff, it'll either update the design doc or update the game in accordance with things that you've said you want the game to do. So I think that's pretty low hanging fruit, and it's not like too hard to do. You're just kind of using AI to like recursively iterate on itself, which is really, really nice. And then I think after that, like the things that would be like the biggest improvements where I see people wasting or spending the most time is asset generation. So I think things like sprite sheets or 2D assets or 3D assets. 3D assets is pretty complicated, but like just 2D assets and then like sound effects. If AI could get better at those two things, which it seems like it's getting very compelling, those are going to be like things that make games really start to stand out and really feel quite polished very, very quickly.
What's the frequency distribution of popularity of games on the platform today? Are you finding that, you know, you mentioned some of the most popular, is it dominated by a top like 2 or 3 games? Is it more diverse than that?
The first games have like a little bit, it's like a little top heavy from just, we only had about 7 or 8 games from January to March, and we had a ton of traction in that time. So like those games have like a pretty heavy top weight just since we didn't have that many games. But we have a lot of new games that have gotten into the hundreds of thousands, if not. I think we have another game about to cross a million plays, and so I would say it's like pretty widespread. And we do daily games and tournaments, and we can get gameplays really fast. And something that I've been really proud of is one of our builders, Vibe Deploy. He built a game, and he had built and launched like a vibe coded game on another platform. He's like, oh, vibe coding is cool, but like, how do I get gamers? Like, I just built this game. Like, how is anybody getting anyone to play their game? Which is a great question. And then I pinged him. I was like, hey, launch it on Remix. We can get you gamers. And then a couple days later, he had like 10,000 people had played his game. It had been played over like 60 or 70,000 times. And then he's like, then he had like another tweet. He's like, Remix is the place you get gamers. And so I think we've done a good job of trying to incentivize gamers to really try and play everything. And another system we're working on now is to build more depth around every single game. So to give individual games essentially their own leveling and achievement system. So even if you're just playing the same game all day, you kind of have like this infinite room to like accrue reputation and experience for that game.
And when you look at your player population, let's talk about that. Who is the audience for Remix? Like, who's playing?
It's super global. We got a lot of traction. So we launched on Farcaster. So Farcaster is really popular in North America, in Europe, and so we got a lot of traction on Farcaster at the start. Then we launched in Telegram. That brought in a bunch of Philippines and Southeast Asia. So like Philippines, Vietnam, we have a lot of users from that. And then we launched our mini app on World, and World was really big in South America. So we have a ton of like Colombian and Brazil users. And then we just launched on the base app, which is again more North American audience. So we're really kind of everywhere. And we just launched our native mobile app a couple weeks ago. We haven't started marketing that too much because we're still kind of fine tuning it, but that's mostly North American users.
So we had a question just a little while back. I'm going to try to say your name, Manduzino. I think that's your name. Thanks. He's asking.
I like it.
He's really asking, how do Web3 games gain attention? I mean, this is a problem for all games. Like, first of all, I guess you could say, how does any game get attention? There was 19,000 games on Steam last year. I don't know how many on mobile, probably hundreds of thousands, because we don't really even know anymore. I think it looks like we're trending to 25,000 games on Steam this year. So how does anyone get attention on a game, let alone Web3 games? And then how do you think about that for customer user acquisition for your platform?
Yeah, I mean, I'll kind of kick that back to you, John. I'm kind of curious. I know you've done this a lot. I'm genuinely curious, like how you think about that, because I think it's a really good question. I would love to hear what you're thinking.
Well, there's a few paths. The one is just make a really fucking great game. I think that doesn't get enough attention, actually. Like, I think people think they can make a B-class game and then market their way to success. I think that's a really tough road. There's a very expensive road, too, because your margins are so thin, if they exist at all. So that's really hard. So I have thoughts about licensed games, because that's where I came from with Disruptor Beam. So Disruptor Beam, we shipped games to about 20 million players, but they were all based on really popular TV shows. So Game of Thrones, Star Trek, Walking Dead, Archer. Those were the 4 licenses that we worked with at Beamable. And our first game was a Game of Thrones game. So
that's cool.
Insane to think about, like, how many studios get to launch the studio with Game of Thrones. So we got super lucky. There's a luck part of this story, which is no one knew how big of a hit Game of Thrones was going to be, and we just sort of rolled the dice and thought it was probably going to work out, and it did. That said, I wouldn't be that eager to build licensed games on mobile today.
Yeah.
The reason why is mobile platforms take so many parts of your revenue away from you. So you give 30% up right out of the gate to the platform. You have to spend like crazy on user acquisition. Like, there's just so many places you can spend your capital there. And when we did it, people kind of had when I was pitching Disruptor Beam, people told me, oh, this will never work because you're going to have to give up all this royalty revenue. And it's going to compress your margins. And they were right, but off by 10 years, essentially. There were no other licensed games. So, like, it was a massive competitive advantage to have that license to gather attention, because it meant we were not spending on user acquisition. Like, we literally did not spend money on user acquisition for Game of Thrones. Our marketing was Apple featuring it in the App Store with Game of Thrones. Guess how many people installed that thing? A lot. So, like, it was like doing a venture capital round to have Apple feature us on the App Store with Game of Thrones. So we didn't have to spend on marketing for that game. But over time, we started to have to spend more and more on marketing. Why? Because there was a proliferation of people that were just copycats saying, oh, look, licenses work on mobile. No duh. People install things that they're familiar with, right? But once everything is licensed, the competitive advantage really diminishes on that, and you end up, and the early critics of me are right in that now you're paying the royalty and you're still doing the user acquisition spend, and that's tough just from a financial standpoint. But to make a long story short, I think licenses still have a lot of energy behind them when you do it on platforms with a lack of mature competition, which it can be new console launches, probably in Web3, frankly. Like, it's an opportunity there. Maybe it would be on Remix. It sounds like you're getting Pudgy Party content, or sorry, Pudgy Penguins. Pudgy Party is a game launched on Beamable. Penguins license. Sounds like you're doing Pudgy IP on there, but it could be that even sort of like quote unquote normie IP could be interesting there if it becomes the on-ramp, right? Like, I think we onboarded a lot of players onto Facebook gaming back in the day, because also our game ran on Facebook. So they saw Game of Thrones and they played a game on Facebook. Sadly, no business model to be had there anymore. But at the time, it was a way to come above the noise. But it comes down to your game has to be exceptional in some way. It has to just be a great game that everybody wants to talk about and loves. I do believe that great games do win, even in the face of great competition.
I mean, it's such a interesting, like, philosophical question too on like great games winning. And I think we're in an era of so much content and so much competing for our attention, and we're also in this like weird era of nostalgia. Like, we have amazing new games coming out all the time, yet like no one will leave World of Warcraft, no one will leave Fortnite, no one will leave Minecraft. Like there's also this like comfort to playing known quantities. But I think for me, in trying to think about like what I would do, trying to get attention for a game is, and I think Remix is a great example of this, is creating stuff that's relevant, creating stuff that's like short form content. I think there's a lot of ways you can use, I think, what is going on in current events to create things that are interesting and get people excited to talk about your game. And Oscar, I sent you a link in the private chat if you want to pull that up. So this was a game that a creator made. I'm not sure if you guys saw this or follow baseball at all, but there was a very viral video about this woman who stole this baseball from this kid in the crowd. And within like 36 hours, a guy had made a version of this game and put it on Remix, which is called like Karen, Don't Take My Baseball. And it was really popular. And it was, yeah, you can kind of see here. So there's a video on the right.
Jesus. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so there's a video on the right of the guy gets a baseball and this woman comes over and steals the ball from him. And then on the left after this video, you can see like someone made a game of you just throwing baseballs at Karen's trying to steal. So you'll see the gameplay. She was throwing baseballs.
Yeah. Lean right into current events. Like I saw a game around the Coldplay concert couple that came out.
But yeah,
spot them in the audience.
Yeah, but you can imagine like you could be making any sort of game, and you can just use a platform like Remix or these short form games to just manufacture attention around your IP. Like your game could be completely different, but you use this as an avenue to get people excited by what you're doing. So I think for gaming, it's always going to be really competitive because it's a bunch of people who are extremely passionate about what they do. They love what they're doing. And I think like my best advice too is just like build what you're really excited to do. Like I think there's so much where I see people make games because they think that's what other people want. And I think that's a really hard place to build. And I think once you just start building things that you really want, I think that actually attracts a lot of people. And so that's more of a, kind of a in the clouds, like, chakra, hooey answer. But I do think I feel like that gaming is really special and it really resonates with people. And I think that comes through the more authentic your game is with what you're trying to represent, and try not to make games for other people and make them for yourself. And I think you'll acquire a lot more people and a lot more gamers.
So we're coming up to the top of our hour here, and I see a comment from Crypto. Damn, I missed the whole thing. I guess you showed up a little bit late into the live stream, Crypto. You can always replay them. We love you in the live audience to be here to engage and hear your questions and stuff like that. But you didn't miss the whole thing because you didn't hear me share the alpha about Beamable yet, which I'm about to do. And then I'm going to turn it back to Chuck Stock to give us the final word and tell you how you can go and check out Remix if somehow you've been asleep on X and you haven't heard about Remix yet. You're going to learn about where to go and where to play around with it. But Beamable, our TGE is right around the corner. We're talking early November. We're going to make an important announcement, I believe, Thursday. I don't know. Drew might complain that I'm giving away too much alpha here. I'm not sure I was authorized to say dates, but we're going to be saying something very soon about the actual timeline. We're going to talk about our partners. The thing that I got to mention, though, is we do have a token presale underway. So, it's the token presale is not underway. We're signing up people to the allow list. So if you want to be on the allow list and have the highest chance of participating, because frankly, the platform that we're launching on, most of their pre-sales sell out in a minute or less. And the way to do that is be on the allow list before it goes wide. So we would love to just invite you, if you've been following us, if you care about what we're building, if you want to make the world more decentralized than Amazon, which took down half the world the other day, if you want to save Gave developers a bunch of money, if you want Beamable to go and partner with Chuck Stock and give them all kinds of additional cool multiplayer async features that they can bring into Remix games, like those are all the things that we're here to do. So on my X profile, which is J Radoff, JRADOFF first initial, last name. You just go to my X profile. It's the first thing that I reshared, and you can just look at that, and you will see a way to join the allow list. Simple form you fill out. You tell us your Solana wallet, what country you're from, where you heard about us, and I think Drew told me I'm supposed to tell people the phrase to put into the referral here. What was it, Drew? Post it on the chat now rather than wait for me. I'm not going to find it in time. I have to go back to our Slack. But fill out that form, and we'd love to get you on the allow list for being one of the live viewers right now. And we really, really appreciate all the time. Yeah, there you go. Put in remix stream in the refer, and then we'll know that you came in through this. So that's on all for Beamable. If you want to know more about the token presale, I'm on X. You can reach out to me anytime, or talk to Drew. He's out there in the community every hour of every day. I don't know when this guy sleeps. I think he might be a AI that's going to take over the world soon, because Drew is always there. I telegram him and I see the 3 dots appear like he's typing, and I think I just pressed return like a millisecond earlier. That's the AI giveaway. Anyway, Chuck, give us the final word here. Where can people learn about Remix?
Yeah, I think remix.gg is our website, remixgg_ on Twitter, I think, or I'm 0x Chuckstock on Twitter. We're very active, or sorry, on X. That's where we do a lot of our marketing. But yeah, I mean, I think the last thing I'd probably leave you with, which is, yeah, John, thanks so much for having me. It's just super fun. I love just talking about gaming and all the stuff that's going on. So really, really appreciate you having me. But also for anyone listening, like, don't be afraid of AI. Like a lot's happening. It's a really exciting time. And I just would encourage you all to be very curious about the developments and what's happening. And if you try vibe coding or trying to do something, even if you tried a few months ago and it wasn't what you expected, like this stuff is changing so quick. And I just encourage you to keep trying again. And if you're curious about making games, I think Remix is a really interesting platform, but there's a lot of other places to do it. But I just would encourage everybody to stay curious and stay open-minded towards AI, because it's definitely coming, and there's, I think, a lot of opportunity in this space if you keep an open mind to it.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And we're ending on a high point, 1,100 live viewers. Thank you so much for coming in, watching what we're doing, learning about all this, learning about both Beamable as well as Remix. That's it for today. Although if you haven't had enough of me yet, I'm about to be on a live stream with Peyton, who some of you know from Wolves Devs.
Yes.
That's happening in 13 minutes. So for those of you tuning into that, I'll see you there. Otherwise, I'll have my live streams later in the week as well. And we'll see you online as well, Chuck Stock, I'm sure. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Blast.